You're going to need more equity coming to the table. Mezzanine financing which was so plentiful and it was found on every corner a couple of years ago, is in very, very short supply, close to non-existent, because so many of the mezzanine lenders are upside down like turtles on their back. It's a real fundamental difference. I just wanted to mention that. So that brings us to construction lending. What's going on in construction?
Greg, if I can interrupt you for 1 second, because I want to just tag on to that. I thought it was a great point. When we're dealing with potential purchasers that we don't know, that we haven't done business with before, we're asking for proof of funds that they have 40% equity of the property they're looking at before we spend any time working with them. Because notwithstanding that we've heard 70%, 80% financing, we haven't done any transactions where the buyer has gotten more than somewhere between 60 and 65% financing. Most of the properties that we're selling now, the financing is between 50 and 60%. So if the buyer doesn't have 40% equity, we don't really want to spend a lot of time working with them, and I think that drives right to your point, Greg.
Right. And really all this does is it brings us all back to where real estate was 15, 20 years ago. Real estate was a thing you bought if you had enough equity to get involved, and you would sit with it for a long period of time. It's only in recent years there was a change to a financial engineering kind of atmosphere where 15%, 10% was enough to get your hands on real estate. I think probably for the better, those days are going to be gone for the foreseeable future, for the rest of our working lives, I would think. So I think if you want to be in the real estate game, it's a great long-term game, but it is a long-term game, and it's going to require some real equity. So that brings us to construction financing. In the last 7 days, we got 3 commitment letters for construction deals. And these have been in the works for a long time. And as anyone in this room who's involved with construction in New York City knows, there are many twists and turns deals take. There are lawsuits between neighbors. There are stop work orders that take a long time to be dealt with. There are all sorts of issues that come up to delay projects, and that can kill financing. We literally have a deal that went from a $31 million loan commitment on a $47 million project to, as a result of stop work orders and delays, being cut down to $15 million, requiring the developer to come up with much, much, much more equity. And given the metrics of the deal, it's still worthwhile to go forward, and they're going to go forward with it. But I think in the old days, you would think of a 75 or even 80% loan-to-cost construction program. These days, it's put in, say, 2/3 equity and borrow a third. Maybe you'll get a construction loan. In some rare cases, for a great rental project, maybe 60%. Will be financeable. So it's an entirely different landscape, and that's really thrown a tremendous amount of cold water on most developers who don't have the money to do that. Maybe Evan can talk about FHA type of financing, which is one possible solution to that.
Yeah, that's a great transition. And I should preface this by saying FHA financing has been available in the market for a long time. It hasn't been the execution of choice for a lot of developers just because of the time involved. It's kind of a two-step application process based on an initial valuation of the property in the market, and then a secondary step where your application is actually processed by your regional HUD office. So at a minimum, you're taking 6 months. Sometimes it can be 9 months to be able to close a loan. It is, now that the credit criteria, the credit crunch has swung the other way, it is worth looking at, but it won't be a fit for every single deal. On deals where it does fit, the terms are great. It's 40-year AM. You end up with a construction to perm under 7%.
Non-recourse.
Non-recourse, up to 90% LTV. But you got to find the project that fits. A lot of time it fits if you're a contractor or developer that's developing rentals and you can act as your own builder. Sometimes the D4 program works great for that situation. But it's not for new condominiums. It's obviously only for multifamily. And you know, you're working truly with a government office versus the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac programs that are government-sponsored private enterprises. So it's a different level.
And you don't have a relationship manager with HUD. So if you have a loan with the FHA and something goes wrong, God bless you, because you won't find anyone to respond.
So, John, does Kennedy Funding do new construction?
Yes, but I just want to go back to the question two before that on personal guarantees real quick. Kennedy does require each loan to have a personal guarantee, but a lot of times we do either it's a deficiency guarantee or it's what we call a good guy guarantee. If for some reason things don't work out and nobody wants to talk about the bad, but we start foreclosure procedures, as long as you don't assert defenses, we don't hold you liable for it. I believe that we've sued on a guarantee once in our history, just to let you know. Now that goes to what we do when we look at our underwriting. You could have great balance sheets that guarantors provided to you. I got tons of them in my file from 2007. I will tell you they're not worth anything today.
Those are the ones with the Madoff investments?
That's correct. They're all loaded up. We don't really put much faith in our guarantees in underwriting somebody's balance sheet, somebody's stock portfolio today. We look at the asset, that's what we underwrite, that's the worst case scenario for us, that's what we tell our investors and co-lenders, this is all you could count on having at the end of the day. It's very simple. So even though you sign a guarantee with us, once. So we don't put much, we don't think it's such a big deal to actually sign it with us, we know that, but it at least keeps our borrowers psychologically involved. Construction, we are absolutely making construction loans. I think the deal has to make sense, though. You have to explain to me, I sit on the credit committee of my firm, what's your exit strategy? Don't tell me you're going to have absorption of your condo sales over a 6-month period and every 10 apartments that are sold, you're going to tick up in price and here's my pro forma, it works. It doesn't work in this market. I tell everybody who we get on the phone with, just be realistic with what's going on in the world today about what your asset is worth today. Work on what it's going to be worth in a year from now, 2 years from now, and 3. But please be realistic. Don't try to oversell it to your lenders today because nobody up here is going to be buying it. The fact that you could build a condo project and get it done like it was, 3-4 years ago. So we know our business, but we are doing construction loans. What we're seeing a lot of is the discounted purchase notes on half-finished construction projects. We just looked at a great deal down in South Beach on Collins Avenue, half-finished. The thing's going to be a home run because it's on Collins Avenue. There's only so many lots on Collins Avenue, and the note was purchased at the right price. That deal makes sense to me today. Going ground up right now to start a condo project anywhere doesn't make so much sense to me today.
Johnny, are you underwriting that as a rental or as a condo?
It's actually as a rental.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do now, as we get towards the end here, is to open things up to Q&A. I'd like to get some of the developers, investors to pop up with some questions. Hopefully you've been brewing with some over the last hour. So just go ahead and raise your hand. Here we go. Just shout it out. He's curious about cap rates that are being used in the underwriting. What property types and locations?
I think Bob Knackel is the
cap rates versus property types and location.
Well, when we do our underwriting, typically a client will come to us and say, I want to sell my building, what is it worth? Well, the first step in that process is to do a valuation. And I would say, again, you have to look at the different product types in terms of what cap rate you're going to apply. We still have not done in Manhattan a multifamily transaction at over a 6 cap. We closed the building on Cathedral Parkway last week, 354 Cathedral, which was at about a 5.5 cap. Closed the building on East 100th Street today, $10 million transaction that was at about a 5.2 cap. We sold the building up at 606 West 137th Street last week, which was a 65-foot wide elevated apartment building. We sold it at 2.3 cap, believe it or not. So the multifamily, well,